So welcome to another video where I'm talking about terminology in ECU tuning. This time it's going to be about PWM. What is PWM, where it's being used, and what does it actually do? Well, PWM is basically the frequency of a valve or something that is actually being fed current, but not in a way where it is the voltage is reduced, but it is actually managed in terms of it being switched on and off very quickly within a specific time frame. So you could think of PWM as 0% would be 0 as a flat line. The specific valve, or let's just assume it is a boost valve, for example, that works with 32 Hertz. That would be it changing how often it opens and closes 30 times or 32 times a second. And at 0% PWM, it would be a flat line at 0. So it would be at 0 volts and there would be no power going to it. So it is closed. When you are looking at 100%, it would have power all the time. So it would be at 12 volts all the time. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting, or rather what PWM actually is or does. It switches the valve on and off for a percentage of time within that time frame. So at 10%, it's going to be like this. It's a square wave, but I'm just showing like this. It would be on, off, on, off, on, off. So a very short interval. So 10% of the time the valve would be on, and the other 90% it would be off. And going up to that, at 50%, it would be on, off, on, off, on, off. So more often it would be on. So 50% of the time it would be on, 50% of the time it would be off. And that will change within the frequency that is set within the valve. So for example, a boost valve has around between 20 and 30 Hertz. And for example, an idler control valve often has between 100 and 500 Hertz. And that is what is PWM when I'm talking about that. And that is PWM duty cycle. So duty cycle is the between 0 and 100% where the valve is actually working and where it's basically, for example, air passing through, or also injectors work in the same way. So you could also see fuel injectors as PWM valves, although they are not really often regarded as that, but they work in the same manner. What is kind of interesting about PWM, for example, with boost solenoids or with idle valves as well, that they have a kind of dead zone. So they only work, let's say, above 20%, and below that they pretty much don't do anything. While they might actuate, like we will hear clicking from the boost solenoid or the idler control valve, they will actually not do anything or will not let any air through, and they will only start working at above that threshold. And that same dead zone is on the higher end as well. So like 85, 90%, there won't be anything or won't be any changes if you go from 85 to 100%, for example, oftentimes. So that's why on your idle valve, if you go from 0 to 20 or from 85 to 100, there often is no change. On valves where actually air is let through, such as idle valves or boost valves or boost solenoids, as I said, it's actually the reason because at that frequency or at that duty cycle, there's no difference in the amount of air that is going to be let through. So those just don't work at those levels. I hope this made you understand what I mean by PWM, by duty cycle, and how injectors work, because injectors can only work to 100% or 0. Well, they aren't really PWM as they work from 0 to 100, but they work in kind of the same way. And they also have not a fixed frequency, because the engine obviously rotates in different speeds. So the injector has more time to inject at 1000 RPM than it would have at 6000 RPM, because one rotation takes less time. So in theory, if you had a low RPM engine, you would be able to get away with smaller injectors than with a high RPM engine. But that's a different point and not something I want to go into further here. That's it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions about this topic. And if you don't, that's good. If you do, ask them in the comments below. And that's it from me. I wish you a nice day and goodbye.